Iran made a fatal mistake by turning a crisis in the Strait of Hormuz into a direct attack on 3 bases and facilities linked to the United States in the Middle East. On Wednesday, June 10, 2026, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard claimed to have launched missiles and drones against American positions in Bahrain, Jordan, and Kuwait. After Trump authorized attacks against Iranian targets near the Strait of Hormuz, the left tries to portray Tehran's reaction as a show of strength, but the move exposes something else. The Iranian regime felt the pressure, reacted impulsively, and now appears to be the side that escalated the conflict against the world's greatest military power. While missiles were being intercepted, while sirens were sounding in the Persian Gulf, and while the Revolutionary Guard tried to turn retaliation into propaganda, that's when the trap turns against Iran itself. The regime attacked and showed weakness, tried to intimidate, but gave Trump more room to tighten the noose. What did Iran accomplish by attacking American bases? Why didn't Trump fall for the attempt to provoke panic? How can this retaliation become an even bigger problem for Tehran? I'll tell you all about it in a moment. If you like this kind of straightforward and no-nonsense content, consider subscribing because we have videos like this every day. The crisis started after the helicopter crash. From the United States near the Strait of Hormuz, Trump attributed the incident to Iran and stated that both soldiers were fine. The United States Central Command reported that the crew was rescued after the helicopter crashed into the sea in an operation that involved an unmanned vessel. This detail matters because it takes away from Tehran the narrative of American humiliation. Iran did not break the morale of the United States. The regime created a crisis, saw the soldiers being recovered alive, and paved the way for a direct response against its own military structure in the region. The American response hit Iranian targets linked to air defense, ground control, and surveillance radars near the Strait of Hormuz. The goal was to reduce Iran's ability to threaten American forces, aircraft, and maritime routes in one of the most sensitive areas in the world. Trump authorized a strong action, but without selling total war as a spectacle. That difference is decisive. Trump worked with a logic of deterrence, hitting where it hurts, limiting the action, maintaining political control, and letting the enemy take the risk of the next escalation. The Revolutionary Guard responded by saying that it attacked 3 fronts: Bahrain, Jordan, and Kuwait. In Bahrain, the symbolic target is even more significant because the nation hosts the headquarters of the US Navy's 5th Fleet in the region. In Jordan, Iran claimed to have targeted the Al-Azraq base, including F-35 fighter jet hangars and a command center. In Kuwait, local defenses reported intercepting hostile aerial targets. The very choice of targets shows that Tehran wanted to send a regional message, but it also shows the size of the risk it took. Bahrain, the symbolic target and location of the United States headquarters. Jordan, also a symbolic target. Responsibility was claimed for Bahrain. Bahrain, the 5th headquarters, is the most symbolic target, representing the nation and air targets. Tehran's targets are more regional, but this headquarters delivers an even stronger symbolic message to hostile forces. The headquarters itself. At the symbolic target, the United States headquarters, a symbolic target. The United States headquarters in the region, a symbolic target. Bahrain, symbolic headquarters, claimed to have targeted hostile air targets. There are still air targets. Jordan said it shot down 5 missiles launched from Iran against Al-Azraq, with debris falling without injuries or damage. This part changes the weight of the narrative. Iran tried to project impact, but the defensive response showed that the region was prepared. When an attack announced as major ends up surrounded by interceptions, defensive statements, and no confirmed American casualties, the propaganda of strength loses momentum. Iran tries to speak as a winner, but acts like someone who is surrounded. Chancellor Abbas Araghchi stated that no threat or attack would go unanswered, and ordered foreign forces to leave the region. That statement was meant to sound strong, but it also reveals discomfort. If the American presence were irrelevant, Tehran wouldn't need to insist so much on their departure. That's why the retaliation came with so many threats. Iran is not calm. Iran is reacting because it has lost ground. Trump turned the tables precisely because he wouldn't accept it. He didn't act the way the media expected. The American attacks on Iranian radars, air defenses, and control stations had already sent the military message. The rest was about managing perception. When Trump doesn't appear panicked, the opponent loses part of the psychological effect they were aiming for. Tehran fired missiles to try to appear bigger than it is, but it encountered active defenses and a president who didn't rush to deliver free drama to his enemies. The region was already tense before this round. Bahrain, Kuwait, and Jordan don't want to become the battleground for a war that the Iranian regime is provoking to save its internal narrative. When missiles cross the skies of these nations, local governments have to activate defenses, protect civilians, and respond to security pressures. Iran tries to say it only targets the United States, but it pushes risk onto the entire region. That's the contradiction. Tehran talks about sovereignty, but launches projectiles over the airspace of other nations. It talks about diplomacy, but uses drones and missiles as its political language. It talks about regional security, but forces its neighbors to run for shelters and defense systems. The Al-Azraq base in Jordan gained prominence because Iran claimed to have targeted F-35 hangars and a command center. Even without confirmation, regardless of damage to these targets, the choice to make the announcement already shows the intention of propaganda. Tehran knows that mentioning advanced fighter jets and military command makes headlines. But it also knows that by doing this, it publicly takes responsibility for an action against American strategic assets. If the intention was to scare Trump, the result might be the opposite. In Bahrain, the main symbol is the Fifth Fleet. The American naval presence there supports operations in the Persian Gulf, the Red Sea, the Arabian Sea, and the nearby routes. Attacking that area means striking at the heart of the American maritime presence in the region. Iran knows this, that's why it chose the target. But choosing the symbol doesn't mean defeating the symbol. When defenses intercept attacks, and there is no confirmation of decisive damage, the Iranian narrative relies more on statements than on concrete results. The regime shouted loudly because it needed to appear strong after being hit at targets near Hormuz. In Kuwait, the interception of hostile aerial targets reinforced the image of a prepared regional network. This also helps Trump. The United States' policy of strength does not depend solely on isolated attacks. It depends on alliances, bases, defense systems, naval presence, and response capability. The region saw that the threat does not go unchecked. They saw that there is a reaction, they saw that there is a cost. Iran's history helps to understand why this attack was a mistake. The Revolutionary Guard has always worked with indirect pressure, militias, proxies, and threats at sea. The regime prefers to operate in the gray area, pushing allies and armed groups to maintain a formal distance from direct war. This time, by carrying out attacks against American bases in 3 nations, Tehran stepped out of the gray area and put its signature at the center of the crisis. That signature may please internal propaganda for a few hours, but it comes at a price later. The more the regime claims responsibility, the harder it becomes to deny responsibility if the escalation gets worse. The parallel with other crises shows how cornered regimes often make mistakes when they confuse provocation with strength. Russia tried to do the same, to turn military pressure into permanent intimidation against Ukraine, which ended up pushing Europe toward more defense spending and greater military unity. China uses pressure in the Indo-Pacific, but each aggressive move accelerates containment alliances around it. While Tehran fires at American bases and talks about a decisive response, its regional allies are also under pressure. This leaves the regime doubly exposed. It needs to show strength to its domestic base, but it also needs to avoid a war that could destroy more military structures. Trump realizes this contradiction and is brutally exploiting it. I'm Milson Alves, Global, and my purpose is to keep you well informed with the truth every day. The news links are in the video description. Leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel, and at the end, check out the comments so you can be even more engaged with the Milson Alves community.